Testing. Testing. All right, so hello, and this is going to be a new, quick video of the Khan Academy and what they like. Basically, what I'm actually trying to go ahead and do with the daily training is to kind of go through all of the actual learning habits of learning, relearning, like math, for example, because I feel like I had a big gap in my time of actually doing any particular like arithmetic or any type of mathematics since college, and I want to go ahead and complete this so I can prepare for grad school. One of the best ways I actually learn is by repetitive test taking. And the repetitive test taking that I'm doing right now is this particular platform called KhanAcademy. So KhanAcademy allows you to learn virtually almost anything you can learn in a like a course like list of different pieces of particular topics. So for instance, I was talking about I started with arithmetic and about for adding, subtracting, multiplication, adding, subtracting decimals, adding and dividing decimals, and then I tested myself. And once you get a good enough score, you just move on to the next one. Trying to get like 100 is not 100% is not really what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to try to do like 80 to 90%, moving forward, and to gradually kind of wire my brain for mathematics. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I really believe that we can rewire our brain to work in the setting that we need to. And I talk about this a lot on my podcast about learning how to learn and learning what I actually believe is actually works for me, and maybe some sort of like scientific research that could actually can add to that. One of the reasons why I do that is because I think that me coming from a particular area of my life where I wasn't like in the academic scenery for every single day. I kind of just did the work because I had to do it because I needed to get a degree because I wanted to work. And I realized that that's not the way that you should go about your life. Well, at least not mine. I feel like it's much better for me to kind of do something that I would love doing. And I've always was interested in technology. I was always interested in computers, but there was always these hurdles. So me is right now, I'm going to actually try to overcome these hurdles by learning how to overcome them, one day at a time. So without taking too much time with that, my plan is to actually do 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes of this at least, and then move into everything else I'm supposed to do. It's a lot to get done, but I think that it's possible if I start waking up a little bit earlier. So you're probably going to start seeing that I'm going to start doing these live streams earlier in the morning, especially as things start returning back to normal with the pandemic. And if, I have to work, I have to actually go to work, I want to start doing that. Maybe like a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning work routine may help. One of the reasons why I want to do this is because I really want to get on, I want to get it written down like on paper, or at least in the public setting, that this was actually what I've done. So that way that there's always a way to go back and look at these things and can see that I actually did these things, and maybe people could just use this as their own routine for themselves for how to get through it, or at least learning on how to get through it, So without basically spending too much time, I'm gonna go ahead and start working on this particular piece right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go through foundations, and we're gonna focus on first thing, was just adding and adding negative numbers. So using the iPad to actually do these arithmetic problems. So you'll notice that. So when you're adding two negative numbers, you always get, it always adds it to a bigger negative number, you know? So like, it's like big negative number, you know? This is basically what we're doing, because it's kind of like saying that you have negative $5 in your bank account, and now you owe somebody $2. So it's gonna be -7. So I make sure I put the negative there. Where's the next one? Here, this one is pretty much the same thing, where you have -$2, $8 in your bank account. Well, this can actually can be you have $3 in your bank account, but now you bought something on your credit card for $8, and now you're in negative, so you're in -$5. This is the same way before. This is in parentheses. I don't know why. I think it's been parentheses so we could just try to show the difference between this. So you're adding -4 plus -4. So if this is like if you owed somebody for $4, and then you owed somebody, and then you owe somebody else -$4. So that would basically be -$8. It looks like it's frozen. It's checking. Let's go back. I don't know why it's taking so long. Okay, here's the same thing. -2 plus 3 would be 1, because this would basically saying that you have -$2 inside your you owe somebody asked you, or you bought something for for $2, and then you have $3. So that means that you have $1 left. So as we know, it's not going to be, it's not too difficult. -2 plus -9 is same thing. So you have -2 plus -9 would be -7. Oh, wait a second. So we have -2 here, and this is -9. So this is -9. There's -9 inside your bank account, and then you want to add -2. I would assume this is what it is, because -2 plus -9. Oh, all right. It goes up. It's, yeah. I didn't look at that right. I thought it was plus -5. Yeah. See, that's one thing about my eyes. Like, I'm looking at it. Sometimes my eyes, jump around, and I don't get a chance to see what's actually going on. So I have to kind of like use my pen, and I touch the screen and make sure that I'm reading it like that. So that helps. So we have 3 plus -1. So this is pretty much the same way. Like +3 plus -1 is like you are trying to get out of debt, and so you'll have 2. Okay, same thing here. You had $8 in your account. You had $8 in your account, and then you have this -8 here, which is like, now you owe somebody $8, so you have $0. Okay. There we go. So that's the end of that. So I could do it again, but I'm going to just skip over it. Okay, here now we're doing subtracting. So subtracting is very similar to like adding, except for the fact that sometimes it can get tricky by the way these numbers sit at. When I was a kid, I actually didn't like the fact that when you subtract here, this 7 minus 7 would be 0, right? But then you have -7 minus 7 it's kind of like -7 minus 7 would kind of be like negative. I think it's basically the same thing. It's just that um, if if you had a positive 7, that's where I go into it. If you had a positive 7, right, then this would be 0, because this is basically the same thing as the 7 being on this side of the board, you know. But the idea I'm looking at right now is that this is -7 minus 7. So what happens here is you just have -7 minus 7. And I think it's also 0, because I think it's something about the you add the time that you add the times plus there, and it gets like negative times -5. So I think it's 0. Or I would actually want to start out with -14. Yeah. And the reason why my intuition said -14 because of the fact that it's very similar to the way that you had -7 inside your account. Here's the second one. So this is -2 minus -7. So you have -5. Oops. So you have 9. Wow. Okay. So this is actually a new thing. So let's look at this a little bit closer. All right. So I think this is where you go negative times this negative is equals to positive. And it'll be -2 plus -5. And it'll be negative. So it'll be a positive 5. Yeah. Okay. So that's where that is. Okay. That's weird to me, but I think it has I think that makes sense now. So this is the same thing. So we have this thing here, and this negative times a negative will be a positive, and then you have 3 plus 6 is 9. And then you have here -3 times -3. So this won't be that because we're not using parentheses. I think there's something that was called we call pendes, so where it's like please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and that was just the way we said this. This actually meant like parentheses. P meant parentheses. E meant exponents. M means multiplication. X. B times A. Division was like A times B, like that. Addition was A plus S, and then subtraction was A minus S. And you would have to go. You would go in this direction. First and last. So we have here -3 times -6. Here, since we don't have the parentheses, it's pretty much saying that this is like saying -6. So you would go up. You'll get even more in debt. Here you have -7 times -3, and that would be this is like this becomes a +3 and becomes like that. And then what happens is that this -3 is cut into -4. And my idea is to not really try to be really fast, but just try to make sure you can avoid getting as much. You can try to get as little mistakes as possible, and then when you do get a mistake, you can figure out where your mistake was and try to correct it. Because as time goes on, you won't be as fast as like you probably was when you were younger. But that's not where it is. Like you can still work on things because now you can utilize like technology to help speed things up. So this would basically be like that. So it's like this. I like to write it down and don't do too much in my head when I'm trying to test something like this. So we have here, and that would be -5. There we go. All right. So we're moving along relatively easy, relatively well. You know, it seems that we have all of these different things done. Absolute values was done. Interpreting absolute value. My tissue. I should bring it in here. So the indoor pool was 24 degrees Celsius, and the indoor pool was 24 degrees Celsius, and the outdoor pool was 20 degrees Celsius. And it says which pool has a higher temperature. So the indoor pool, we know that, you know, as the temperature continues to rise, that it's getting hotter. And that we know that as the temperature, you know, becomes lower, is you know, we should probably even, I say it's cool. So if the outdoor pool has a temperature of 22 degrees Celsius and the indoor pool has a temperature of 24 degrees Celsius, then the indoor pool has a higher degree of temperature, even though it's indoors. And then it says here, which pool has a greater absolute value? The absolute value is when which one is closer to 0. And the outdoor, as that would basically be that, no. So I guess it's not that then. Interesting. Let's see what that means. We should look at that later. Interpreting the absolute value. So it's not closer to 0. I think it's just pretty much like their values, the absolute value increases even though, you know, that they're 23 and that's 24. So you have it. The table below shows the scoreboard from a friendly game of canasta. It says player score, Mahmoud, -25, Zayed, 20, 10, Phil is 40. And we have here player score, Mahmoud, Zayed, Phil. It says sorted players from lowest to highest absolute value score. And then we have here that the lowest would be here. Mahmoud has a, you know, and then Phil would have the highest. Oh, here comes the absolute value of the score again. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to look at that again.
So we have 3 folks, Jenna, Sarah, and Bill, and they're keeping track of their weight. And they're, in particular, they're keeping track of their weight over a month. And right over here, we have their weight change over the month. So if you take their ending weight, and from that, you subtract their starting weight. So let me just write that. That's your end weight minus your starting weight. That's going to be your change in weight over that month. And so we have the change in weights here. So Jenna's change in weight is -3 pounds, which means that she lost weight. Sarah's change in weight is +2.5 pounds, which means she gained 2.5 pounds. And then Bill's weight, or change in weight, I should say, is +4 pounds, which means he gained 4 pounds over the month. So given that, let's answer some questions. Who lost the most weight? Who had the largest change in weight? And who had the smallest change in weight? And I encourage you to pause the video and try to work through it on your own. Let's just.
Well, so we can look at this, we can see definitely that her weight changed from -3. So we could say 0 is pretty much the idea of the position that she was in, and then she goes from 0 to 3 down. Well, down, like, you know, if -3 is over here and +3 is over here, she went down 3 pounds. And then you have Sarah, she's at 0, and then she goes to 2.5. So 2.5. So she has the greater absolute value, Jenna, so far. And then we have Bill, who has who has 4 pounds. So he has a greater he has the largest change, and then we can go ahead. So I can see that now when you have the great absolute value, what that's basically saying that if one guy is 125 negative 25 pounds, and another person is, 5 pounds, then the greatest absolute value would be the negative 25 pounds. So now I can go ahead and
encourage you to pause the video and try to work through it on your own. Let's just plot all of them on a number line here. Help us think through it. Some of you might already have an answer here. So Jenna's weight change is negative 3 pounds.
Just go ahead.
So what do we think at the least change? Well, another way to think about this is the least absolute change. Who changed the least from the 0? Well, if you look at here, Sarah had the smallest absolute change. Jenna lost weight. So the weight change of Jenna, she has negative 3 versus Sarah's positive 2.5. But if we talk about who had the least change from 0, if your weight change was 0, that means you didn't gain or lose weight from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. So who had the least change? Well, that's the least absolute change. But we see that right over here. 2.5 is less than 3 or 4. So the least change is Sarah. We're done.
Yeah. So Sarah has the least change because of the fact that she had 2.5. But if this was actually 25, she would have the most change. So that's just, but like because that she has so now I have a better intuition. So here, this says highest absolute value of the score. So from the lowest. So the lowest absolute value would be the change from the starting point to 10. So let me go ahead and draw this. So you have starting points, and they go from let's see, 0, and this goes up here, which is 10, and then here is 0, and that's 40, and then here is Mahmoud, and he goes back this way to negative 25. So first, the greatest change would the highest absolute value score would be Zayed, but when it comes down to Phil and Mahmoud, no wait, yeah, it's Phil would have the highest. Zayed would have the lowest, and then Mahmoud would have the second highest, because pretty much this is looking at these looks at these numbers regardless if it's 25. So that's good to remember that now. So you program each of your robots with a single instruction: move -5, then B, move -9. Determine if each statement is true or false. And this is true or false. Both ones moved backwards. True. B moved farther than robot A. So B moved farther than robot A. True. And it says here, a positive number tells the robot to move forward, and a negative number tells the robot to move backwards. Yeah. So that's kind of like where they're kind of giving people, they see it, you can quickly see that they're giving intuition to the students that are reading these things, probably younger students, but it doesn't really matter, to learn how to understand numbers in the form of, like, if you're programming a robot to move around. So in this bank account, Jean Paul has a balance of 0. His friend Albert has a balance of $11.10. Which friend's bank account has more debt? So since he has this negative here, Albert has the most debt. So which balance has a greater absolute value? Here's a greater absolute value now. So Albert has the greatest absolute value. Right. Now I have a better understanding of the absolute value. And that's basically it. When it comes down to, like, learning these things, I think it's really important to do it. If you're trying to learn these things just for any particular reason, I don't think you probably don't need it, but I think that you really should try to put it into terms, learning something. You can learn other things. You can learn, all different types of, you have math, science, economics, arts and humanities, computing, you have a thing called Pixar in a Box that tells you, like, how to do, like, how to code your own simulation, How you do it?
Hi, I'm Haley Ivan. I'm a software engineer. Sorry. I worked on the hair simulator for the movie Brave. Hair was a really big deal in Brave. It was a symbol of freedom that was intrinsic to our main character, Merida's personality. And making hair that feels right, meaning messy, wild, and free, is a hard thing to do computationally. In our movies, hair is a simulated effect. That means no one animates its movement by hand. The way it moves is defined by physics and programmed into the computer. To figure out what hair simulation should look like, we needed to look at real curly hair and see how it worked. What we found was this: curly hair forms together in locks that reshape themselves when you pull on them, kind of like a spring. This was great news because springs can be modeled mathematically, meaning we can simulate their behavior using a computer program. From the computer's perspective, Merida's hair is just lots and lots of springs that react to forces, such as gravity, as Merida moves. The tests we ran using this approach were pretty good, but not quite natural enough. While stiffer springs held the shape of the curl, it didn't bounce like natural curls. When we made the springs looser, her curls would unwind when she moved. This was even more obvious at high, often oscillating speeds found in animation. We realized we needed something to preserve the structure of the curl, but not impede the overall motion of the hair. Kind of like digital hairspray. Sorry. We came up with the idea of connecting the springs that make up Merida's on-screen hair to invisible core springs, like this. The core springs would limit the movement of the on-screen hair when the motion was more extreme. This way, we could have the best of both worlds. Our original simulation would create motion that was soft and natural, but the core springs would keep the curl from unwinding too much. Figuring out how to make a hair simulation system that could help us achieve the feeling we wanted from Merida's hair was hard. It took a lot of iterations to get it right, but it made a big difference. Merida feels like a real girl, messy, wild, and free.
So pretty much this is what I'm trying to get at, you know, with this particular, I don't know if you saw that, but like there's a video on KhanAcademy that talks about hair simulation overview, and it gives you into the understanding of like modeling hair and understanding different things that we use in mathematics to do in real life. So I would definitely, recommend or advise you to try to find out something that you're interested in and see how they use mathematics to do it. It's not necessarily ideal to go ahead and just do the math just for the sake of doing it. I definitely agree with people who are not interested in doing math for that reason. But I do feel that you should try to find a way to learn how math works for you, and then try to learn the math in a way that it helps you to understand things better. For example, maybe doing calculations quickly inside your head might help you to increase your brain, I guess, your brain function, or maybe like being able to, hold numbers in your head, or increase your memory, about how to do certain things in your head, because you're actually, when you actually do the work, I've noticed you actually store it in your head in a way that it's easier for it to be retrieved when it's necessary. But if we live in a world where we don't retrieve it, then what happens is that we end up like moving into this this mindset where you'll be like, you'll say, I will say, oh, I don't know it because I'm getting older, when that's not what really is how it is. I mean, there are kids that, who will grow up, if they don't have math, they're not taking any math, or then if they're living in America, they don't read German, they're not going to know German. But if they actually was learning German from, as a younger age, or even just being around people with German, would help them to learn these things. The other thing I will also want to say is that you don't have to spend hours doing it. I think that, 10 minutes, 15 minutes out of the day is enough to actually to gain some value out of it. The idea is the consistency, trying to maintain the consistency, and also utilizing the internet to find things to look at. Don't let the information online tell you what you want to learn. You tell the computer what you want to learn. And I'll leave it at that. Take care. See you guys in the next video.